Katie Miller wiped down the last table at Luna's Corner Café as the afternoon rain tapped against the windows. At 16, she had been working at her grandmother's small coffee shop for 2 years now. The cafe sat on a quiet street in downtown Denver, and it had become a popular spot for aliens visiting Earth. Her grandmother Luna always told her to be polite, but keep her distance from the alien customers. "They have their own ways, dear," Luna would say. Best to let them be. But Katie found the different species fascinating. She had always been curious about their cultures and languages. The bell above the door chimed, and Katie looked up from cleaning. A tall figure stepped inside, shaking raindrops from a dark coat. The newcomer was clearly alien, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the cafe's warm light. His hair was silver white and pulled back neatly. When he turned toward her, Katie saw his eyes were a striking violet color. He was Zenthari, Katie realized. She had seen a few of their species before, though never alone. They usually traveled in groups with guards and assistants. This one wore simple clothes, just dark pants and a plain shirt under his coat. He looked around the cafe nervously before choosing a corner booth far from the windows. Katie walked over with a menu and a glass of water. "Welcome to Luna's Corner," she said with a smile. "What can I get you today?" The alien looked surprised that she had approached him directly. Most servers at other places usually sent someone else to take alien orders. His violet eyes studied her face for a moment before he spoke. "Coffee, please," he said in perfect English, though his voice carried a slight accent. "Black coffee. That's it? We have some great sandwiches today, and my grandmother makes the best apple pie in the city." Katie set the water down and waited. He shook his head politely. "Just coffee, thank you." Katie brought his order and noticed how he sat perfectly straight like he was used to formal settings. His hands were long and elegant, and he held the coffee cup as if it were made of the finest crystal. He stared out the rain-streaked window with a sad expression. The cafe was nearly empty except for an elderly human couple reading newspapers and a pair of Rigelian traders discussing business in low voices. Katie found herself glancing at the lonely alien in the corner booth. He had barely touched his coffee and seemed lost in thought. Her grandmother always said Katie was too friendly for her own good. But something about the alien's obvious sadness made her want to help. She grabbed the coffee pot and walked back to his table. "More coffee?" she asked. He looked up, startled. "Oh, yes, thank you." As she poured, Katie noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you okay? You seem upset." The question clearly surprised him. He blinked those violet eyes and tilted his head. It has been a difficult day. Want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps to tell a stranger your problems." Katie set the coffee pot on the table and slid into the seat across from him. "I'm Katie, by the way." "I am Zeph," he said slowly, as if he wasn't sure he should give his name. "And I appreciate your kindness, but I do not wish to burden you with my troubles." Katie laughed. "Trust me, after dealing with cranky customers and broken coffee machines all day, I can handle whatever's bothering you." Zeph studied her face again. "You are not afraid of me. Should I be?" Katie asked. "You seem pretty harmless to me. Sad, but harmless." For the first time, Zeph's expression softened slightly. "Most humans avoid my species. They find us intimidating. Maybe because most Zenthari I've seen look all serious and travel with big, scary guards," Katie said. "You're just sitting here drinking coffee and looking like someone stole your lunch money." Zeph made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Stole my lunch money?" "It's an expression. It means you look really sad about something." Katie grinned. "So what do you do?" "For work, I mean. I am a civil servant," Zeph said carefully. "I work for my government." "That sounds boring." "It can be," Zeph admitted. "Very boring. And very lonely." Katie felt sorry for him. "Well, you're not lonely right now. Tell me about your homeworld. What's it like?" Zeph seemed to relax a little as he described his planet. He talked about crystal cities that reached toward 3 moons and vast gardens where flowers sang in the wind. His voice became warmer as he spoke, and Katie found herself fascinated by his stories. "It sounds beautiful," she said. "Why did you leave?" "Work," Zeph said simply. "My duties require much travel." They talked for another hour. Katie learned that Zeph had never tasted apple pie, had never played human card games, and had never watched a Earth movie. In return, she told him about her dreams of studying alien cultures and maybe working as a translator someday. "You would be good at that," Zeph said. You have a gift for making others feel comfortable. When it was time for the cafe to close, Zeph stood and reached for his wallet. He left enough money to cover his coffee 3 times over. The tip is too much, Katie protested. It is for the conversation, Zeph said. I have not felt this relaxed in a very long time. Will you come back? Katie asked. I work most afternoons. Zeph paused at the door. Would you like me to return? Of course. Everyone needs a friend. Something flickered across Zeph's face. Surprise, gratitude, maybe even hope. Then yes, I will return. Thank you, Katie Miller. After he left, Katie cleaned up his table and wondered how he knew her last name. She didn't remember telling him, but maybe she had mentioned it during their conversation. Her grandmother came out of the kitchen as Katie was turning off the lights. How did it go with the Xanthari? He seemed nice, just lonely. Katie hung up her apron. He said he'll come back. Luna frowned slightly. Be careful, dear. Sometimes aliens have complicated lives. Katie nodded, but she wasn't worried. Zeph seemed like someone who just needed a friend. And Katie had always been good at being a friend to anyone who needed one, no matter where they came from. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the evening stars were beginning to show through the clearing clouds. Somewhere among those stars was Zeph's homeworld, with its crystal cities and singing flowers. Katie smiled as she locked the cafe door, looking forward to hearing more of his stories tomorrow. 3 weeks had passed since Zeph first entered Luna's Corner Cafe, and he had become Katie's favorite customer. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon he would arrive at exactly 3 o'clock and sit in the same corner booth. He always ordered black coffee and stayed until Katie's shift ended at 6. Their conversations had grown longer and more comfortable. Katie learned that Zeph loved human music, especially classical pieces. She brought her phone to work and played different songs for him, watching his violet eyes light up when he heard something new. In return, he taught her a few words in his language, though he warned her that Xanthari was difficult for human tongues to pronounce correctly. Your pronunciation is improving, Zeph said one Thursday, as Katie brought him his usual coffee. She had just attempted to say thank you in Xanthari, and while it didn't sound quite right, it was better than her first tries. I've been practicing, Katie said, sliding into the seat across from him. The afternoon rush was over, and only a few customers remained in the cafe. I looked up some Xanthari language videos online. Zeph raised an eyebrow. You are studying my language? Just basic stuff. I want to understand other cultures better. Katie stirred sugar into her own coffee. I'm hoping to study xenobiology in college. Maybe work as a cultural liaison someday. That is a noble goal, Zeph said. Understanding between species is very important for peace. Katie noticed he spoke about galactic politics like someone who really understood it. Most people their age didn't care much about interplanetary affairs, but Zeph always seemed to know exactly what was happening across the galaxy. You know a lot about politics for a civil servant, she said. What department do you work in exactly? Zeph paused with his coffee cup halfway to his lips. Administrative affairs. Very boring paperwork, mostly. Katie didn't quite believe him. In the past weeks, she had noticed several strange things about her alien friend. He spoke at least 6 different languages fluently. She had heard him answer his phone in what sounded like Rigelian, Andromedan, and something she couldn't identify. He also seemed to know important details about trade agreements and diplomatic situations that wouldn't normally concern a regular office worker. Must be pretty high-level paperwork, she said. You seem to know everything that's happening in the galaxy. I read the news, Zeph said quickly, and my job requires me to stay informed about current events. Katie decided not to push the subject. Everyone had secrets, and Zeph was entitled to his privacy. What mattered was that he was kind to her and seemed to genuinely enjoy their friendship. Want to try something new today? She asked. My grandmother made fresh blueberry muffins this morning. Zeph smiled. I would like that very much. Katie brought him a muffin and watched as he tasted it carefully. His expression brightened with surprise and pleasure. This is excellent, he said. Human food continues to amaze me. Better than the fancy stuff you eat on your homeworld? Much better, Zeph said seriously. The food on Xanthari Prime is very formal. Everything must be prepared in traditional ways. There is no room for creativity or simple pleasure. Katie heard something sad in his voice. That sounds lonely. It is, Zeph admitted. Everything in my life is formal and traditional. This cafe is the first place where I can simply exist. where I can be myself without worrying about protocol or expectations." "What kind of expectations?" Katie asked gently. Zeph was quiet for a long moment. "My family has very specific ideas about how I should behave, what I should say, who I should associate with, how I should spend my time. Sometimes I feel like I'm not a person, just a role that must be performed correctly." Katie felt sorry for him. "That sounds awful. Don't you have any real friends back home?" "No," Zeph said simply. "People are either afraid of my family's position or they want something from us. No one has ever treated me the way you do." "How do I treat you?" "Like a normal person," Zeph said. "Like someone worth knowing for who I am, not what I represent." Katie reached across the table and squeezed his hand. His skin was cool and smooth, and she felt him tense at the unexpected contact before relaxing. "You are worth knowing," she said. "You're smart and kind and funny when you let yourself be. Anyone would be lucky to have you as a friend." Zeph stared down at their joined hands with an expression of wonder, as if he had never experienced such simple human comfort before. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I have never had a friend like you, Katie Miller." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the late afternoon sun filter through the cafe windows. Katie noticed that other alien customers sometimes glanced at their table with strange expressions. A few had even bowed slightly when passing Zeph's booth, which seemed odd for someone who claimed to be a simple government worker. "Zeph," she said, "why do other aliens act weird around you?" He looked uncomfortable. "What do you mean?" "They bow sometimes. And they look nervous. Yesterday, that draconian businessman actually backed away when he saw you. Perhaps they recognize me from government announcements," Zeph said. "Sometimes my department issues public statements." Katie wasn't convinced, but she let it go. Whatever Zeph's real job was, it obviously made other aliens treat him with unusual respect. Maybe he was more important than he wanted to admit. The bell above the door chimed, and Luna emerged from the kitchen. She glanced at Katie and Zeph's table with a thoughtful expression. "Katie, dear, could you help me with inventory in the back?" Luna asked. Katie reluctantly let go of Zeph's hand. "I'll be right back," she told him. In the storage room, Luna crossed her arms and studied her granddaughter. "You're getting quite close to that young man." "He's just a friend, Grandma." "He's not just anything," Luna said quietly. "I've been watching him, Katie. The way he carries himself, the way others react to him. I think your friend might be more important than he's letting on." "What do you mean?" Luna sighed. "Your grandfather worked as an ambassador to the Galactic Federation before you were born. I learned to recognize the signs of nobility and power. Your Zeph has them." Katie frowned. "He's just a civil servant." "Maybe," Luna said, "but important civil servants can be dangerous to know. Just be careful, dear. Sometimes kindness can lead to complications." When Katie returned to the dining room, Zeph was checking his phone with a worried expression. He looked up as she approached. "I have to go," he said, standing quickly. "There is an urgent matter that requires my attention." "Everything okay?" "I hope so," Zeph said. He left money on the table and headed for the door, then paused and looked back. "Katie, if anything ever happens, if people come looking for me, please remember that our friendship has meant everything to me." Before Katie could ask what he meant, Zeph was gone, leaving her with more questions than answers and a growing feeling that her quiet alien friend was hiding something much bigger than a boring government job. Katie couldn't stop thinking about Zeph's strange behavior from the previous week. He had seemed worried and rushed when he left the cafe, and his warning about people looking for him made no sense. She found herself checking the news for any stories about Zenthari civil servants, but found nothing unusual. When Tuesday came around, she watched the door anxiously, hoping Zeph would appear at his usual time. At exactly 3 o'clock, he walked through the entrance, but something was different. 2 other Zenthari followed him inside. Tall, serious-looking individuals who wore dark suits and had small devices attached to their ears. The 2 strangers took a table near the front of the cafe while Zeph went to his usual corner booth. They ordered coffee but spent most of their time watching the room and the street outside. Katie had never seen Zeph with companions before. "Friends of yours?" she asked as she brought Zeph his coffee. "Colleagues," he said stiffly. "They insisted on accompanying me today." Katie glanced at the 2 Zenthari who were clearly keeping an eye on everyone in the cafe. "They look like bodyguards." "They are concerned about security," Zeph said. "There have been some threats recently." "Threats? What kind of threats?" Zeph shook his head. Nothing for you to worry about. Just some political tensions, but Katie was worried. She had never seen Zeph look so uncomfortable. He kept glancing at his companions and checking his phone. When she tried to start their usual conversation about human culture, his responses were short and distracted. Are you in some kind of trouble? She asked quietly. Not trouble exactly, Zeph said, but my situation has become complicated. Before Katie could ask more questions, one of the bodyguards approached their table. He spoke to Zeph in rapid Zenthari, and Katie caught a few words she had learned. Something about time and returning and important meetings. Zeph sighed and stood up. I have to go, he told Katie. I will try to return Thursday, but I cannot promise. Zeph, what's going on? You're scaring me. He looked like he wanted to explain, but the bodyguard was waiting impatiently. Please trust me, Katie. Some things are difficult to explain. After they left, Katie felt uneasy for the rest of her shift. Luna noticed her distraction and asked what was wrong. Something's not right with Zeph, Katie said. He had bodyguards today and he seemed really nervous. Luna frowned. Bodyguards? Katie, I think it's time you learned something about your friend. That evening, Luna sat Katie down in their living room and pulled out an old photo album. She flipped through pages of pictures from her late husband's diplomatic career until she found what she was looking for. This was taken at a Galactic Federation ceremony 20 years ago, Luna said, pointing to a formal group photo. Your grandfather is there in the back row. Katie studied the picture. It showed dozens of aliens and humans in fancy clothes, standing in what looked like a grand palace. In the center of the front row sat a Zenthari with violet eyes and silver hair, wearing elaborate robes and a crown. Who's that? Katie asked, though something about the figure looked familiar. Emperor Zephyr Valdris III of the Zenthari Empire, Luna said quietly, ruler of the Galactic Federation. One of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Katie stared at the photo. The Emperor's features were similar to Zeph's, but the person in the picture looked much older and more formal. This can't be the same person. Zeph is young and he's just a civil servant. Zenthari age very slowly, Luna said. And that photo is 20 years old. Katie, I think your friend might be using a false identity. That's impossible, Katie protested. Why would the Emperor of the Galaxy hang out at a coffee shop in Denver? Maybe because it's the one place where he can be treated like a normal person, Luna suggested gently. Katie spent that night researching everything she could find about the Zenthari, Empire and Emperor Zephyr Valdris III. The official websites showed only formal portraits and ceremonial photos, but she began to notice similarities. The Emperor's violet eyes were the same shade as Zeph's. His bone structure looked similar, though the formal pictures made him appear cold and distant. The more she read, the more worried she became. Emperor Zephyr ruled over 10,000 worlds and commanded massive military forces. He had enemies across the galaxy who would love to see him dead or captured. If Zeph really was the Emperor, then their friendship had put both of them in danger. Thursday came, and Katie waited nervously for 3 o'clock. When Zeph arrived, he was alone again, but he looked tired and stressed. Dark circles showed under his violet eyes, and his usually perfect posture seemed strained. You look terrible, Katie said as she brought his coffee. Thank you for your honesty, Zeph said with a weak smile. I have not been sleeping well. Want to talk about it? Zeph was quiet for a long moment. Katie, there are things about my life that I have not told you. Important things that might change how you feel about our friendship. Katie's heart began to race. What kind of things? I am not exactly who I have claimed to be, Zeph said carefully. My real position is much more complicated than a simple civil servant. How complicated? Before Zeph could answer, Katie's attention was drawn to the street outside. A black vehicle had parked across from the cafe, and several figures in dark clothing were getting out. They moved with purpose toward the cafe entrance. Zeph, Katie said urgently, I think we have a problem. He followed her gaze and his face went pale. No, he whispered. They found me. Who found you? Zeph grabbed Katie's hand. Listen to me very carefully. When they come through that door, get behind the counter and stay down. Do not try to help me, do not interfere, just hide. Zeph, you're scaring me. Who are they? Enemies, he said simply. People who want to hurt me because of who I really am. The cafe door burst open and 6 armed figures in combat gear stormed inside. They weren't human or Xanthari. They looked like draconians with scaled skin and fierce reptilian features. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Emperor Zephyr," one of them shouted. "You will come with us now." Katie's world tilted. Emperor Zephyr. Zeph was really the emperor of the galaxy, and somehow she had been having coffee with him for weeks without knowing it. "Run, Katie," Zeph yelled as he stood up from the booth, but Katie was frozen in shock, staring at her friend as the truth finally hit her. The lonely alien she had befriended, the sad civil servant who loved her grandmother's apple pie, was actually the most powerful ruler in the known universe, and now his enemies had found him because of her cafe. Katie stood frozen as the draconian soldiers spread through the cafe, their weapons pointed at Zeph. The other customers screamed and ran for the exits, but the soldiers blocked their escape routes. One elderly man tried to hide behind an overturned table, while a young couple huddled together near the kitchen door. "Katie, get down," Zeph shouted again, but she couldn't move. Her mind was struggling to process what was happening. Her gentle friend, the sad alien who loved blueberry muffins, was really Emperor Zephyr Valdris III. The lead draconian, a massive creature with dark red scales and glowing yellow eyes, stepped forward. "Your Imperial Majesty," he said with mock respect, "you have been very difficult to find." Zeph's entire posture changed. The nervous, humble civil servant disappeared, replaced by someone who radiated authority and power. He stood straighter, his violet eyes becoming cold and commanding. "Commander Drex," Zeph said, his voice now carrying the tone of someone used to being obeyed. "I should have known the Draconian Liberation Front would eventually track me here." "You made it easy by visiting the same location repeatedly," Drex replied. "Did you really think you could hide among these primitive humans forever?" "I was not hiding," Zeph said calmly. "I was taking a vacation." Drex laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "A vacation that ends now. You will come with us and you will publicly renounce the Federation's authority over Draconian space. I will do no such thing. Then you will die here, along with everyone else in this pathetic establishment." Zeph glanced at Katie, who was still standing near his table in shock. "Let the humans go. They have nothing to do with your grievances against the Federation." "They do now," Drex said, "especially the young female. Our intelligence suggests she means something to you." For the first time, Zeph looked genuinely afraid.
"Katie has nothing to do with this."
"She is an innocent civilian." "No one is innocent who consorts with tyrants," Drex snarled. He gestured to his soldiers. "Take them both." That was when Zeph moved. Katie had never seen anything like it. One moment he was standing calmly beside the table, and the next he was in motion, faster than human eyes could follow. He grabbed a metal tray from the nearest table and threw it at the closest soldier, the impact sending the Draconian flying backward into the wall. Zeph's hand went to his jacket and produced a small device that expanded into a weapon Katie didn't recognize. It hummed with energy and fired beams of blue light that struck 2 more soldiers before they could react. "Katie, behind the counter now," Zeph commanded as he dove behind an overturned table. Energy bolts from the remaining Draconians scorched the air where he had been standing. Finally, Katie's paralysis broke. She dropped to her hands and knees and crawled toward the counter as energy blasts flew over her head. The smell of burning plastic and ozone filled the air. Behind her, she could hear Zeph moving and firing, his weapon making sharp cracking sounds. From behind the counter, Katie could see her grandmother Luna emerging from the kitchen with a look of determination. To Katie's amazement, Luna was carrying what looked like an old military rifle. "Grandma, get back," Katie shouted. "I didn't survive the Rigelian conflict to hide from a few Draconian terrorists," Luna replied grimly. She took aim and fired, her shot hitting one of the soldiers in the shoulder. The battle was chaotic and terrifying. Tables and chairs were blasted apart, the windows shattered, and the smell of burning filled the cafe. But slowly, Katie realized that Zeph was winning. He moved like a trained warrior, using the cafe's layout to his advantage and picking off the soldiers one by one. Just as Drex raised his weapon to fire at Luna, the cafe's front wall exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris came figures in sleek silver armor, moving with military precision. Their leader was a tall Xanthari female with short white hair and fierce golden eyes. "Your Imperial Majesty," she called out. "Are you injured?" "I am fine, General Korath," Zeph replied, still keeping his weapon trained on the surviving Draconians. Though I question your timing. We came as soon as we detected the energy signatures, General Korath said. Her soldiers quickly surrounded the remaining Draconian fighters. Your security detail has been searching for you for 3 hours. I told you I did not want a security detail. And I told you that was not your choice to make, Korath replied firmly. She looked around the destroyed cafe and shook her head. This is exactly why you need protection, Your Majesty. Katie slowly stood up from behind the counter, her legs shaking. Everything she thought she knew about her life had been turned upside down in the space of 10 minutes. Her quiet cafe was destroyed. Her grandmother was holding a rifle like she knew how to use it. And her friend was apparently the most powerful person in the galaxy. Zeph saw her standing there and immediately holstered his weapon. The commanding emperor disappeared again, replaced by the worried friend she knew. Katie, he said, approaching her carefully. Are you hurt? She stared at him, taking in his torn clothes and the small cuts on his face from flying debris. You're really him, she said quietly. You're really the emperor. Zeph nodded, his violet eyes full of regret. I am Emperor Zephyr Valdris III, ruler of the Zenthari Empire and chairman of the Galactic Federation Council. Why didn't you tell me? Because when I told you, everything would change, Zeph said sadly. You would stop seeing me as just Zeph and start seeing me as a title, a position, a symbol. I wanted to be your friend, not your emperor. Katie looked around at the destruction. Well, now I know anyway. General Korath approached them, her expression disapproving. Your Majesty, we need to leave immediately. There may be more terrorist cells in the area. Give me a moment, Zeph said. Sir, with respect, you have already endangered yourself and these civilians enough. We need to evacuate you to a secure location. Zeph's eyes flashed with imperial authority. General, I said, give me a moment. Korath stepped back, clearly recognizing the tone of absolute command. Zeph turned back to Katie. I am sorry, he said. I never wanted you to be hurt because of me. I never wanted any of this to touch your life. Katie was still processing everything. So all those weeks you were just pretending to be normal? I was not pretending, Zeph said earnestly. With you, I was more myself than I have been in years. You treated me like a person, not like a ruler. You gave me something I have never had before. What? A real friend, Zeph said simply. Someone who cared about me for who I am, not what I represent, Katie looked at him. This powerful emperor who ruled thousands of worlds, and saw the same lonely person who had sat in her cafe drinking coffee and eating apple pie. Despite everything that had happened, despite the lies and the danger, she realized that her feelings hadn't changed. You're still my friend, she said. Emperor or not, you're still the same person who taught me Zenthari words and listened to my dreams about studying alien cultures. Relief flooded Zeph's features. Thank you, he said quietly. General Korath cleared her throat impatiently. Your Majesty, we really must go. Zeph nodded reluctantly. I will try to return when it is safe, he told Katie, if you will have me. I'll be here, Katie said. Assuming we can rebuild the cafe. Zeph smiled for the first time since the attack began. That will not be a problem. The Federation will cover all damages and ensure the safety of everyone involved. As the Imperial soldiers escorted Zeph toward their transport, Katie stood among the ruins of Luna's corner and tried to understand how her simple life had become connected to galactic politics. Her grandmother appeared beside her, still holding the rifle. Quite an afternoon, Luna said calmly. Grandma, why do you have a gun?
Oh, that's a long story, dear.
Your grandfather and I had quite interesting lives before you were born. Luna looked at the departing Imperial forces. I think yours is about to become interesting too. 2 weeks passed before Katie saw Zeph again. The cafe had been completely destroyed in the battle, leaving only rubble and broken glass where Luna's corner once stood. Katie spent her days helping her grandmother sort through insurance papers and wondering if her Imperial friend would ever return. The Federation had been true to Zeph's word about covering damages. A team of Zenthari engineers arrived 3 days after the attack and began rebuilding the cafe, using advanced technology that could complete in days what would normally take months. They worked with quiet efficiency, creating something that looked exactly like the original building but was clearly much stronger and more secure. Katie was watching the construction from across the street when a familiar voice spoke. Behind her, "It will be finished tomorrow, in turned to find Zeph standing there, dressed in simple human clothes but accompanied by two discreet bodyguards who kept their distance. He looked tired but healthier than when she had last seen him. "You came back," Katie said. "I promised I would." Zeph joined her on the sidewalk, studying the rebuilt café. "I hope you approve of the renovations." The engineers included some additional safety features. Like what? Reinforced walls, energy shields, security scanners. Nothing that will interfere with normal operations, but enough to prevent another attack like the last one. Katie nodded. "Are you still in danger?" "There are always threats when you rule 10,000 worlds," Zeph said quietly. "But my security team has eliminated the immediate danger from the Draconian Liberation Front. Commander Drex and his cell have been captured." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the alien workers put finishing touches on the cafe's exterior. Finally, Katie asked the question that had been bothering her for 2 weeks. "Why did you really come to Earth? And don't say it was just for coffee." Zeph smiled sadly.
Do you know what my typical day is like, Katie?
"I wake up at dawn and spend 12 hours in meetings with planetary governors, trade ministers, and military commanders. I make decisions that affect billions of lives. I review reports on wars, famines, and political crises. Then I attend formal dinners where everyone watches every word I say and every move I make." That sounds exhausting. It is, and lonely. When you rule an empire, you cannot show weakness or uncertainty. You cannot have casual conversations or admit when you are sad or tired. You especially cannot have real friends because everyone wants something from you. Katie understood. "So you came to a random cafe on a backwater planet where no one would recognize you?" "Earth is not backwater," Zeph protested. "But yes, I came here hoping to find a place where I could just exist, where I could drink coffee and eat pastry and talk to someone who did not know or care about my title. And instead you found me. I found the best friend I have ever had," Zeph said sincerely. "Someone who saw me as a person worth knowing, not as a position worth exploiting." Katie felt her cheeks warm. "I'm glad you came to our cafe that day, even though it resulted in a terrorist attack." "Even though," Katie paused. "But what happens now? You can't keep sneaking away from your empire to drink coffee in Denver." Zeph turned to face her fully. "Actually, I have a proposal about that. My council has been resistant to my continued visits to Earth. They believe it compromises my security and makes me appear weak to our enemies." "They're probably right about the security part." "Perhaps, but they are wrong about the weakness." Zeph's violet eyes grew determined. "My friendship with you has reminded me why I became emperor in the first place. Not for power or glory, but to help different species understand each other and live in peace. So what's your proposal?" "I want to establish Earth as a neutral meeting ground for informal galactic diplomacy. A place where leaders and representatives from different worlds can come to meet in a relaxed setting, without the formal protocols that usually govern interplanetary relations." Katie's eyes widened. "You want to turn our cafe into some kind of embassy?" "Not exactly an embassy, more like a cultural exchange center, with Luna's Corner as the heart of it." Zeph gestured toward the rebuilt cafe. "I have already spoken with your planetary government. They are very interested in the idea. What about my grandmother and me? This is our business. You would remain the owners and operators, of course, but you would also serve as cultural liaisons, helping visiting aliens understand human customs and helping humans understand alien visitors." Zeph smiled. "I believe you would be excellent at such work." Katie thought about it. The idea was overwhelming but also exciting. "I've always wanted to work with different alien cultures. This would give you that opportunity. You would meet ambassadors, scientists, artists, and leaders from across the galaxy, and you would help them understand what I have learned. That genuine friendship and understanding can bridge any gap between species." "And you? Would you still visit?" "Every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 o'clock, Zeph promised. "Though I might occasionally bring guests who need to learn about the human concepts of kindness and hospitality." The cafe's front door opened, and Luna emerged carrying a box of supplies. She saw Zeph and smiled. "Your Imperial Majesty," she said with a slight bow. "Welcome back." "Please just call me Zeph," he replied. "I understand Katie has told you about my proposal." "She has, and I think it's a wonderful idea." Luna set down the box and looked at her granddaughter. "Katie has always dreamed of working with alien cultures. This seems like the perfect opportunity. So you're both willing to do this?" Zeph asked hopefully. Katie looked at the rebuilt café, imagining it filled with beings from across the galaxy, all coming together to share food and conversation and friendship. It was exactly the kind of future she had dreamed of. Yes, she said. Let's do it. Zeph's smile was brighter than she had ever seen it. Excellent. The first group of visitors will arrive next week. A delegation of Rigelian artists who have never interacted with humans before. I'll make sure we have plenty of coffee and pie ready, Katie said. And I will bring a proper introduction to human music, Zeph added. I think they will enjoy your classical collection. As they talked about plans for the cafe's new role, Katie realized that her life was about to become everything she had hoped for and more. She would get to study alien cultures, help promote understanding between species, and continue her friendship with one of the most important people in the galaxy. 6 months later, Luna's Corner had become famous throughout the Federation as the place where species came together in friendship. Katie had met philosophers from Andromeda, musicians from the Vega system, and scientists from worlds she had never heard of. Each Tuesday and Thursday, Zeph still arrived at 3 o'clock for his coffee and their conversation, sometimes alone and sometimes with guests who needed to learn about human warmth and hospitality. The cafe had become exactly what Zeph had envisioned, a place where the formal barriers between species could be set aside in favor of genuine connection. And at the center of it all was a young human woman who had once offered kindness to a lonely stranger, never knowing that simple act would change both their lives forever. Katie smiled as she watched Zeph teach a group of young Centaurian diplomats how to play human card games. The shy civil servant was gone, replaced by someone who was comfortable being both an emperor and a friend. And in doing so, he had helped Katie become exactly who she was meant to be, a bridge between worlds, built on the foundation of understanding that every being in the galaxy, no matter how powerful or humble, just wanted to be seen and accepted for who they truly were.